Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this year's first edition of the SMU Energy Transition Seminar Series. We conduct this year with a slightly longer event today, so an hour and a half, as we will discuss the modernization of the cornerstone of Norway's energy landscape, hydropower. Hydropower is an old technology which faces new challenges. It is vulnerable to climate change and its extreme events, and its operation has started to become more and more constrained by biodiversity preservation goals. Meanwhile, it's still relatively cheap, it has low carbon emissions, and can provide valuable flexibility and long term storage. And this is especially valuable in the context of the transition to renewable energy. Indeed, if we want large integration of renewable, we need dispatchable power that can produce when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. This is why we have many high power upgrading projects that are being proposed in Norway these days. And this spurs debate about their economic, social, and environmental impacts. Today, we will look at the modernization of Norwegian hydropower from different perspectives, as you like to do in those seminars. So, for those who have not met us before, I'm Christian Wein, PhD candidate at the Department of Electric Energy, and I'm joined by Amber Nordholm, PhD candidate as well at the Department of Interdisciplinary Studies of Culture. And together we'll guide you through today's discussion. And Benjamin, who is over here, will be providing essential support throughout this seminar. So thank you all for being there, and let's get started.
Thanks, Vivian. And is this on?
No.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Thanks for the introduction, Vivian, and thanks everyone for being here for this third energy transition seminar we have been curating together. And here we aim to create a platform where participants can learn about ongoing research projects, expand academic networks, share energy-related expertise across departments, and holistically approach the energy transition. So we are thrilled to welcome our speakers, Kasper Batman Varande, Steinar Kletten, Thomas Mo Schulzol, and Anna de Lauguslos for today's seminar. So today they will bring their extensive expertise to the table. Kasper will start by introducing us to concrete examples of hydropower upgrading projects. Following this, Steinar will delve into the economic aspects of such projects. We will then welcome Thomas for his societal perspective. And then, last but not least, Anna will complete the overview by bringing environmental considerations to the table. Afterwards, we will have a Q&A, and we hope to have some active engagement from you all. And don't forget to stick around afterwards for pizza and socializing here at Gruva. We look forward to connecting with all of you then. So, first up is Kasper. So Kasper is an adjunct associate professor at the Department of Civil Engineering, Civil and Environmental Engineering. And he's a project developer at the Norwegian hydropower company, Sura Kvina. His expertise is in hydropower engineering, which for the uninitiated like me means he does hydropower stuff, like he's got expertise in knowing how to increase the capacity on existing plants, how to better consider the environment, things like this. But perhaps it's best I let him take it from here. And so, Kasper, we're excited to hear what you have to say. The floor is yours.
Okay, learn you. My name is Kasper Varande, and as I was introduced, I'm a high power developer, meaning that my job is to map out potential high power projects and define them and put them forward for investment decision. And so my job today will be influenced by mainly the industry side of my working life, where I now work to map out potential power plants in the company where I work. And I'll first give a brief introduction about new framework, new conditions for designing our power plants. There has a lot that happened the last couple of years, making new projects more feasible. And then we will have a look at what's the potential to upgrade existing power plants. Because in Norway, that's mainly what's relevant. Most of our rivers already built out, so maybe we will make new power plants between existing reservoirs. There will not be so many new kind of greenfield projects in Norway. And then have to account for technological potential and economic potential. So here's one of the new things that have happened that you are all aware of. So that put it a little bit in some light graphs. This is the power price in Norway the last years. So here we see what we were used to, what was the reality 30 years. This is what is in the backbone of every hydropower developer in Norway. And then only this happened with the war in Ukraine, the gas crisis, and the prices skyrocketed. And this kind of still we are over here with it higher, much higher prices and fluctuation than ever before. So I think it's a lag for us hydropower developers to realize what is now the new reality and what are now new projects that are feasible. Because here, almost nothing was being built. Now, everybody, all the big power companies in Norway are developing new projects. And so, as a consequence of this, we see here is what we have simulated is the expected startup of a software plant that we own and operate. Historically, we started and stopped maybe 150 times per year. Many turbines, sometimes enough. And then what we expect in years to come is drastic increase in how often we start and stop the power. Just one consequence. Then over here is it's not just the power prices that have increased, but also these system services, which is stabilizing the frequency in the grid and helping out the TSO to keep the balance of production and consumption in check. And this is historical revenue in the system services market in Norway. This year, it used to be below 200 million NOK in our price region, southern Norway. So this is the total amount of system services that has been sold these years. And then you see here, 2021, 2022, it's quadrupled the markets for those system services. So this year it's possible to make a lot more money than it used to be. And also interesting to make new power plants that can deliver these systems. Then we have offshore wind being planned here, Sterling Nordsjö 2. That's where they have put out this auction, and company has won that auction and plan now to build it. That offshore wind is planned being onshored over a year. And my company is these power plants, this ring here. That is where our power plants are located. We're perfectly located to be the power plants that handle this offshore wind and balance that up-regulated power. And it's a lot of power. 1,500 megawatts first round and maybe second round as such. And if they build 3,000 megawatts, it's 10% of Norway's total installed capacity. So it's a lot. Okay, so here is the Sierra system where I work, and this is one of the two most important hydropower systems in Northern Europe, basically. It's Sierra and then Bulafare, which is owned by Stockholm. They're the two most regulated systems in Northern Europe in terms of time. As you see, we have all these power plants. They are in cascades. and all of them have big reservoirs. And to put it in context, up here we have Stockholm, 1.4 billion cubic meters of water. The largest reservoir in Austria, in the Alps, who is famous for hydropower, is 400 million cubics. So our largest is 3 times larger than the largest one. So sorry, it's actually 2. We have 7 times larger. So they had incredible possibilities in Norway. And Tonstad here is Norway's most producing power plant, produces 4 terawatt hours every year. But there's a lot of potential to make it even larger. That's how much for that. Okay, so here are discharges for our power plants. It's 70 cubics for Ørsted, 75 for Kvin, 110 for Solon. Duge is a pump storage plant, 105, 65, 65 is trunk mode. Double 85, Tonstad 250 cubics, then Onasjeda 375. You see, in general, you have higher discharge as you go down the system. And okay, then I made a theoretical exercise. What is the possible expansion or upgrade we can do of the hierarchical system? And I tried to make an environmental rule of thumb. And we cannot change the reservoir more than 10 centimeter per hour. That's kind of a rule of thumb for what's ecologically sustainable, 10 centimeter per hour. And then up here in Juvia, it's a gigantic lake. And we can make 1,200 megawatts and not change the water level more than 10 centimeter per hour. You will not be able to see it move with your bare eye. We can produce 1,200 megawatts. And then in Shovel, we get all the water from Jugge. We add on 10 centimeter per hour from Baba. We can make another 1,300 megawatts. And then all that water through Tonstad, which is 450 meter head, 3.7 gigawatts. We do the same exercise. Boskefjorden is also incredibly large, but the head is only 70 meters. But it's a lot of water from 10 centimeter per hour. We can make 400 megawatts. Then we can make 1,000 from Kvin and 2,000 megawatts here from Solon. And finally, to Tonstad, 4,400 megawatts. So in this case, all of the reservoirs are drained 10 centimeter per hour, and all that water is flowing like a tsunami through the system. So down here, even though this is 50 meter head, we can make additionally 1.3 kilowatts. So in Stavanger, we can make 15,000 megawatts from our system alone and not change the water level more than 10 centimeters per hour. And this is half of Norway's current installed capacity. We can increase the installed capacity by 50% and not change water level more than 10 centimeters. So it's incredible potential. But I had to put this disclaimer over here, the yellow load, that is a theoretical potential. And it's probably not practically possible, or at least it's not economically feasible to make all that happen. So we will not build this tomorrow, I did. Hopefully one day, but not tomorrow. And okay, here are some challenging graphs that I will walk you through it. And up here is the power price, the last 14 years, and it's a duration curve, saying how much percent of the time has the price been higher than this amount. So, and 20% of the time, the price has been more than 500 NOK per megawatt hour. And 50% of the time, it's been more than 250 NOK per kilowatt hour. And this graph is very interesting for regulated hydropower, because we can try to capture that the good price all the way there to best. And then we want to shut off the power plants when the power price is in the right. And then here to the upper right, we have the production from Tonta power plant, Norway's most producing, last 14 years. And you see this, the black line, that's the historical production from Tonta. So it's almost linear. And when you compare with this price, you see we have produced some of the good price, yes, but we have produced not on the bad price. So that's to the right here. From that's we should have shut down the power plant and those dampened price flow. But for certain technical reasons, it's not possible today in current time. And that this the gray line is okay. That's what's theoretically possible if we either produce maximum power at a good price and then shut down the rest of the time. And then the light blue line is if we double the installed capacity of something compared to it. And ask me later or afterwards if you are curious more about it. But here I've mapped out with historical car prices how much could we increase the income from power plants if we increase the installed capacity. So here is Qatar. If we were able to not have this linear production, but key to the gray line, the theoretical optimal, we could have 600 million NOK extra income every year without increasing the installed capacity, but just producing on the net price. And then the blue line, if we double the installed capacity, we could earn more than 1 billion NOK extra every year. So the potential to make new power plants in our system, there is definitely potential, and we are working right now very hard to find this. Okay, so a few examples of what we are working on. This is a small project, Shadow. It's here, the system. The problem from the top, why you have this linear production curve, is that the intake reservoirs, Austdal over here and Homestad over there, they are the smallest one in our system. And they have a lot of water, unregulated water coming in. So that's why we sometimes, even though the price is almost zero, we have to produce because the water is just coming, the reservoir are full, we have no chance, we have to produce it. So by making this power plant, then we can pump here from Østlandsbank in those situations. But the price is very low, water is coming, we don't want to use that one. Then it looks like this. Today, we have a lot of inflow to Amsterdam, Østlandet, and we have to produce in other prices. And then we end up with this duration curve, as we see. What we now want to do is to instead pump that water, shut up, pump some those times, and then we get closer to this duration curve. So we produce more here in a good price, less in the bad price. And up of it, today at Qatar, when the price is very high and there is not so much inflow, then we don't have enough water to produce maximum power on top. That's why here we are almost never at 960 megawatts because we don't have enough water. So with these new power plants, we can get more water down when the price is high and low inflow, and then also we get closer to this. Okay, and we have more projects. Here is the big one, where we go directly between these reservoirs, 1,300 megawatts. We are investigating this, and this one, it's an incredible large investment in the range of 10 billion NOK. So incredible large investments. We don't know the power prices in the future, extreme uncertainty. So this is kind of our challenge nowadays, we see this can have large potential, but we really have to investigate it closely to believe that we will get the money back if we invest. We're working on all this. Okay, I think I'll conclude there and then ask me afterwards if you have questions.
Thank you very much, Katka, for this insightful presentation. I think we all have a bit more of a practical view of these upgrades. So we look forward to discussing all those things with you at the Q&A at the end of the session. But for now, we will move straight into Stein-Erik's presentation. So Stein-Erik Fletten is a professor at the department. Stein-Erik is a professor at the Department of Industrial Economics and Technology Management. He is a reference in the fields of energy market modeling, risk management, and investment under uncertainty, all of which are highly relevant to our topic today, as Caspar introduced as well. So Stein-Erik, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lydia. So, yeah, I will take the financial perspective here. So, these investments, the financial perspective would ask, okay, so are they profitable? Yeah. And whether they're profitable depends on prices. But I stole this graph from Cospo. So here you see it again. It's an excellent graph, Cospo, really illustrating what's going on. So in the past, prices were lower and with less variation, and in the recent past, much higher price levels and much higher variations in prospects. And the kinds of investments we are talking about, they get much more profitable with both of these phenomena, higher prices and higher variations. They really increase the profitability. So, one thing to emphasize is, okay, what kind of projects are we talking about? Well, like Caspar says, it is mainly existing hydropower and doing something about that, and not greenfield projects. So this means the kinds of projects that increases the capacity to produce at any point in time. So you have your megawatts capacity and you increase it by investing in the power plants themselves. So that's one possible type of investment. Another is to include pumps, like Caspar mentioned. So for hydropower, these are the most relevant projects. And notice that these projects quite often do not get more energy. So like there's not more water coming into the systems. So what's really happening is that the ability to produce at higher prices, that's what's being changed in the hydropower plants. So if we need more energy, we need to have other kinds of projects, which include offshore wind, onshore wind, or other types of projects. There are also exceptions to what I'm saying, but this is the general picture. And one thing that Kafka didn't mention so much is that these projects, they have a very long lifetime. They're usually known for normal businesses. So many decades lifetime for these components, 40, 50, 60, etc. Years for many of the components, core components. And so you're sort of asking the investors here to look at these prices, and I'm trying to guess what will be the distribution of these prices in 10 years, 20 years, 30, 40, and 50 years. So this means that their investments are quite risky. Quite risky. And um, also, since these investments, they don't get any energy. So how to sell these, how do you pre-sell the output from such a project? It's just more flexibility, really. And there's no market for that kind of flexibility. There's no contract market for that. So if we wanted, or if Sirapina wanted to pre-sell this on a long-term contract, uh, there's no obvious market for that. So there's a missing element here. We should encourage such a market, and then it could have more certainty and more, uh, less risk for the parties involved. So another risk for the parties involved is the changing taxation. So one thing that has changed the last 2 years is the natural resource rent tax. It's been changed in terms of a level. So it went from 37% on top of the 22% normal profits tax to 45% in 2023. So from my point of view as an economist, this kind of tax is not the worst. Why? Well, it's so-called neutral. It means that if Sirapina has a project that is profitable before the change, it will also be profitable after the change. So Sirapina will still invest in this project independent of this tax change. Most likely. So there are details in practice, of course, but it's pretty neutral. So this is not the worst planned plans. But another tax that was introduced at the same time was a high price tax, and that's not a neutral tax. It shares off the highest profits, and it's very detrimental to the kinds of products that are relevant that we're kind of talking about today, because it shaves off exactly the best prices that these companies need to recoup their investment. Well, it's in effect a price of 23% extra on top of the income that's above a certain level, 70 euro. So that's a little less than 70 euros per megawatt hour. Fortunately, this tax was abandoned after a year. That was so for me as an economist, thinking about the society, that was a good decision to abandon this tax. But some damage has already been done, which is harder to repair, which is that the companies get a signal from the government. The companies are seeing the government as being some entity that you really cannot trust always to have a stable tax regime. So this means that there's added risk for these kinds of investments. With this risk of future possible tax changes is also detrimental. So I will end now with some considerations on conflicting goals here. I already mentioned this unstable tax that is going back and forth. But I also mentioned this contract market. There's no contract market for selling the flexibility from operating from the project, so the risk is pretty high. And the compact market is an important one. There exists a market for energy delivery, for future energy delivery. This existing wholesale market, it's a financial market, has been existing in Norway since the 90s. And it gives transparency to producers who want to pre-sell their power, and to consumers like Hydro and other producers metal producers who want to secure the purchase of power ahead of time. But the government has done a couple of things that will probably, in the end, kill this market. One is that they've launched their own market with 3 to 5 and 7 year duration, which has a tax incentive for the producers to sell. This is in direct competition with this wholesale market. Another thing is the support to all end users. It means that end users no longer have an incentive to hedge or do 1 year contract or fixed price contracts, because the government is covering all the risk in attack by supporting consumption overnight nightly or from that. So yeah, another consideration really important that we hear about from the next speakers is a local opposition, including that perspective of conserving nature. So that's really an important factor that will affect the discussions going forward for these types of investments. Okay, that's what I have for now. Thanks for listening, and I'm looking forward to the panel debate in a few minutes.
Thanks, Einar. That was really interesting, and I'm sure that'll generate some good questions for the discussion. So, yeah, jot those down if you've got them. So, next up, we have the societal perspective on hydropower. So, Thomas is a professor of science and technology studies here at NPNU. He is also the director of the FME project, the Norwegian Center for Energy Transition Strategies. He's got a very broad understanding of society-wide sustainability transitions, how they unfold, how such transitions can be more inclusive and democratic. And to this point, he has a deep understanding of the Norwegian society in politics, where hydropower has played a central role for a long time. So please welcome Thomas to the stage.
Great. All right, so thanks a lot, and thanks to the previous speakers. And I really appreciate Sten Erik's point about sort of bringing the nature and society into representation also on economy and technology, because, of course, in reality, it doesn't make sense to say technology here, economy here, society here, nature there, deal with them one at a time, then we'll face this, because all those things, they are tightly related, right? And they are tightly related in quite specific ways, in quite specific places. So that's why I'll give you my sort of conclusion here first, and that is that, and this is also all technologies. So whether you are keen on talking about nuclear or wind or hydro, whenever you hear someone say, are you for or against this technology, just leave that debate alone. It's not interesting. It is much more interesting to zoom in on the specifics of whatever it is we're talking about. And so Amber mentioned this, that my interest is in transitions, right, in various ways, and ways that society ages technologically and socially in response to sustainability and climate challenges. You read the regions of policy documents. This is the Climate Commission came last year. They say that, well, we need to electrify, cut 50% of emissions through electrification. And although we've heard from the previous speakers, this discussion that we're having here isn't necessarily about producing more energy. The effects and the flexibility aspects of upgrading hydro is central. So it should be a no-brainer, right? We have this stuff, and if you read sort of newspaper commentary, that's kind of the frame. Why is it so difficult? Everyone wants this. Why can't we just have it? And then I thought of, so okay, it's interesting then to zoom in. I mean, it was the first presentations that has been like this forever, and started with the start in 2017. So I thought, I can do better. So I have one that was 100 years old, and hydropower has been around for a long time in Norwegian society. And yeah, the last speaker spoke about a market kill. And Norwegian Hydropower started with a market kiln, right? There was a Klondike boom in Norway, early, late 1800s. I have to sort of, I think I say that, so it's true. So what is okay, voila, we have electricity, and we figured out we could use the Norwegian waterfalls for that. Investors flocked to Norway, buy all the hydropower, all the wealth, waterfalls, and they made enormous profits, massive profits in super short amounts of time. And the politicians were panicked to the extent that they introduced what has later become as the panic laws. Yes, I kid you not, that was their popular name. And they, out of this, extreme free market liberalism that we have covered in sort of a competition with the more sort of labor-oriented politicians, you had a sort of series of these concession laws that came out of this. And again, just to say that back then, for or against hydropower doesn't really matter. To me, then, the question is sort of, okay, which institutions do you put in place? How do you manage the resource? How do you distribute the benefits and burdens out of this? And that was exactly the goal here, right? You got these concession rules that are a bit special. They secured a special way of governing this resource, where you gave companies a right for between 50 and 70 years. We hear about the decadal perspective here. And there's something called the MPAL, a huge institution in Norwegian governance of this resource, where after a company having used this resource for 50 to 70 to 80 years, depending on when it started, the resource was to go back to the state so that you could sort of reevaluate. Are we still doing a good job? Should we revalue, should not? And the goal here, of course, is to ensure long-term solid management of what is actually a common pool resource, which is the water, right? And the power that produces. And if you read this policy document, which I pretty well, but on this point it's pretty good. They write a bit about Hjemfall and its role in Norwegian society, and they say it's a Norwegian boat, but I'll try to translate it. Not least, Hjemfall has contributed to providing legitimacy and acceptance. It's been legally accredited and tried, and all of these things. And they're saying that this way of organizing and dealing with this resource provides some lessons for how to think about the relationship between new resources management and energy development in the green transition. Wasn't a very good translation on the spot, so you sort of get the drift, right? And the result of this, I think, is in a kind of a social contract that we've had in Norwegian society, where on the one hand, its companies and result is provided UEC Busan, which is a popular Norwegian slogan, and on the other hand, has ensured industry development and resource management to the benefit of society. The commission, again, they say that, okay, you can do three things. You can upgrade hydropower through investing in new turbines. They say, yeah, go ahead, do it. They say, install increased effect, as we've discussed earlier today. They say, you can do it, but it's controversial. Think about it. And they say, pumped hydro, you can do it. Great in this kind of system that we have. You can do it, but it's controversial. And then the question is, why is it so controversial? And my argument is that, of course, it has to do with nature, the environment, the local place, these kinds of things, but it also has to do with the fact that these technology changes tend to entail institutional change and political change and social change. The Energy Commission, now they say, should, this is what they recommend, cater for pumped hydro. They should sort of strike a deal between industry and the state to provide 7 terawatt hours by 2030, but you should also develop environmental criteria. And sort of zooming in on what this might mean and what it tends to mean is, of course, that when you sort of renew a concession, and I think the first speaker probably has a lot more experience on the practical side and struggles about these things that I have. It means you have to reevaluate the environmental criteria. So the question then is, do we have the same environmental standards today as we had in 1950 and 1960? In most instances, you would clearly say, no, it doesn't make sense anymore. We know better, and they did in the 50s and 60s. There's a strong EU integration now, right? These massive discussions about whether or not Norwegian hydropower is affected by the taxonomy, EU taxonomy for investments on sustainable investments. And there's been strong pushback actually by the industry, and we can discuss if it's true or not, but to some of these developments. And as a quick note, I will not say which project or which actors, but I know, that there's been research in Norway where industry has strongly pushed against doing actually studies on acceptance and on sort of nature-oriented issues in Norway. So I have colleagues who have had to go to Sweden to study these things, right? Because they haven't been allowed in Norway. And you're laughing because you know what I'm talking about. So this industry is also an industry which is not neutral. It's been quite conservative on these issues. This is now a bit speculated because I'm basing this next part of the story, which is also not fiber part of the story, on some newspaper coverage. You should always be careful about that. I haven't researched this very properly. But this is the case that has been finally debated in Norway, right? Or at least in parts of Norway. And it's a case where a company called Hydro, many of you know it, they aggregated one of these concessions in 1962, so a long time ago, to develop. Røndal, Suldal, it's a place southeast of Norway, and they have developed this to fuel these Karmøy industrial sites that the Hydro has down there. And then sort of what they've done is, and it's all legal, so this is not saying that it's a scam or anything like that, but through various ways of working, they've been able to challenge this idea of EMFAL by developing a new company. So they've merged parts of Hydro with Lyse to develop a new power company, and they're doing an upgrade now. Thinking of the upgrade, which is in the order of 5 to 7 billion NOK, I think, maybe a little more. It's a massive project, right? You heard from the first speaker. This is not, a little sort of, when you hear upgrade, you can think that it's a little, you just do the same. It's a massive project. And the environmental aspects have been hugely contested. Another part of this, which has been just as important, I think, here, is this loss of the EMFAL, which means that the municipalities here, they at least claim that they get a lot less than they originally would, and they get no sort of ownership in this, which they would if the regime had remained stable policy-wise as it was. So these are a lot of the discussions, right? Who should benefit from this? Who should earn the most? And then we heard Rob talk about risk here, and that's also a question, I guess. If you sort of look back in time to the 1950s and 60s, I think I'm out of battery. Allergies, there, I'm back for now. If they would have been awarded this sort of with today's standards, so they kind of had something for a long time, and we then sort of hold on to that through making some tweaks to the institutional configuration. So what does all this mean in terms of transition? Well, there is currently a massive lack of public legitimacy for the energy transition. I mean, no political project these days is more contested in the Norwegian and European context than this energy transition. And then part of this, in general, is due to a lack of trust in these actors and that they are taking care of these resources for the good of society. There's a clear sort of unequal distribution of benefits and burdens. And the already very wealthy and powerful tends to gain right from these situations where there's a systematic losses going on here. And in a Norwegian situation, hydropower has been extremely well trusted, extremely well trusted. And, my fear is that we may sort of be jeopardizing that now. Although caveat here, further need research, that's not training on that part. Okay, to wrap up, okay, the most undermined in discussions, I think, they are for or against technologies. So don't do it. Just don't do it. So the political context, institutions, culture, the concrete practices, relation to nature, economy, all of these things always matter, and they differ between sites. So we need to sort of understand that, right? And that means that we also need to take care of pretty well these things when it comes to upgrades. And what that means. So when we change technologies, we change all these relations, and that means that we also need to think about sort of the stories that we tell the population about why you will need this stuff, right? Which society are we going to? So I think that's my story, and then yeah.
Thank you very much so much for this eye-opening presentation. We will finish this round of presentation with Anna Abedeva Bustos, research scientist at Synthesis Energy. She's responsible for the ReAdapt project, which looks into adapting hydropower using future climate extremes. Her research focuses, among other things, on interactions between hydropower and the environment. So her input will be more valuable to our discussion. Anna, take it away.
Thank you. So, yes, uh, I will be talking about the environmental perspective. In the presentation, I will do a general introduction and then use some examples of environmental consequences that we have already seen through modeling, especially in cases in Siracuina, as Caspar has already introduced the system. So, first, mention that in Norway, we have actually more than 50% the storage capacity of Europe. So that's a big number. And this is compiled in more than 1,000 storage reservoirs around Norway, which are spread in a different altitude range and also have different depths, with the majority between 60 and 80 meters. This means that these lakes are in different climatic regions and they will have also different environmental conditions, different species living in there, and also different potential for hydropower production. But these reservoirs are not just used for hydropower production. They are also home and utilized by different species, different species. We also have other type of species that live in different areas in these reservoirs, like, for example, in the littoral area, which is the most productive area where the light can penetrate. We can have algae. We have also phytoplankton, zooplankton, and this compile a food web. So if these small animals, for example, are being impacted, that means that also the community living in these lakes and reservoirs will be impacted. We also have other species that utilize this. For example, if during winter the reservoir is the freeze, you will have a stable ice over, and it's used for reindeers, for example, to cross over through their migration routes. And this is also one of the cases that Thomas mentioned, that there is one hydropower company that is applying for upgrading from a conventional or traditional power plant into a pump. And it's actually reaching a lot of opposition because in this area is an important community of radios. So now this is through MBE and is going into the hearing process. So it's taken into account for granting the concession. Probably they will have to do some mitigation measures, but this is a case that is quite sound and controversial lately. And also, last but not least, we also use reservoirs. We like to be recreational and fish during the summer. During winter, you can also use it to cross skiing. So it's important that for us to make use of them. So now that we know the importance of them, I would like to ask what are the environmental consequences then of changing from a traditional to a pump system? I thought it was a very answer. But first, let's talk about what is the traditional way of managing a reservoir. So in this case, we have the typical curve of filling the reservoirs, and we see like the max, the mean, and the median, and then over a year. And there are two specific key points. The one that is when the reservoir will start filling, and it also match the snowmelt period. And here is a video of Roskep Fjord, one of the upper ones in the system of Siracuina. And we see how it's melting, the ice and the snow, and then the water levels rise. And then it will stabilize during summer until winter, where we actually start needing the energy, and then there will be production and water levels will be reduced. But this picture will change a lot in the future if we have pumping. There will not be this way of producing. The water levels will be increasing and decreasing, increasing and decreasing much more often. Another important aspect is that the reservoirs actually have a dynamic in temperature, and you can have 2 times a year where the water is mixed, and then for the that will be spring and autumn, and then 2 times a year where the water will be in a thermal stratification. So in summer, you will have the warmer water in the upper part because it will be heat and then colder down. And in winter, it will be ice, cold water, and then warmer water below on the bottom. And this you will understand that is important because it will also be impacted by pumping and it's also impacted on the traditional. The picture is for a sensor that we have deployed in August 2021 in Roskert in Siracpina system. And we can see the sensors are deployed at different depths in the reservoir, so we can clearly see these periods that I just mentioned mixing during spring and autumn, and then the stratification during winter and summer, and also the invert stratification where the deepest sensors are measuring the warmest water. So what are we going to expect? When we have pumping, then we will have two main drivers, water level fluctuation, and also we will be transferring water from one reservoir to another with different physical chemistry and different characteristics. So this water level will change when you produce, and then it will increase when you pump back. And of course, as I mentioned, temperature will also be transferred. So if you transfer from the bottom of your reservoir, when it is winter, you will be taking warmer water into a reservoir and releasing it mainly at the surface where it's supposed to be cold. So you are also impacting this thermal stratification. There are other impacts, for example, sedimentation problems, nutrients transportation. You will have impact the littoral zone or the shorelines of your reservoir and the habitats. And you will have biological, for example, you will affect the food web, you will transfer of species because species that live in one can be transferred to another reservoir. This can also be invasive species. And you will also impact migratory species in terms of fish, but also other species, as we have seen, reindeer, for example. So I will show you specific examples of what we have actually simulated, because until today, we don't have a case in Norway that do pumping as we expect it will be in the future. As Kaspar mentioned, we see that, okay, we have some pumping, but it's more on a seasonal base. But we are expecting that this pumping will change and have much more fluctuations and start in the future. So I will show you examples of thermal effects, ice cover, and effects on the littoral zone. So this is the theatrical system you have already seen, and we are changing from a conventional hydropower plant to a pumping through our modeling. And I will show you examples for the temperature in two different segments. We have the upper reservoir and the lower one. And I will show examples on segments close to the inlet and outlet, close to the structures, and also two segments that are a bit far from the structure. And what we can see here is the temperature in the segment in roster that is close to the outlet or the inlet. And upper graph shows the traditional and the lower one, the pump. And what we can see is that in specific years where there was more price variability, we can see that there is a discontinuous stratification in the area that is close to the inlets. And in the case the pumping will be inlet and outlets, because in some cases it will also pump back. And
What we see in the one that is far in the lake, the impact is much less visible and significant. We see the same in Oyapan, a lower reservoir close to the structure. We see that there is an impact, but because Oyapan was already under traditional, it was already receiving water, so it was already altered, the stratification. But what we see is more frequent water levels. And it's different from the one that is far away from the structure. So in conclusion, we see that the closer to the structure, you will see more impacts compared with far away. These are also a video because it's the thermal and stratification will also impact in the eyes. As you see these in two cameras, we have in Oyaban, one is close to the outlet and the other is far inside the reservoir. And you see the one upper close to the outlet, you see that there is not unstable ice, there is no ice at all, it formed but just disappear very fast. While inland, you have a stable covered ice and also some snow and snow in the camera, but you can see that it lasts over the winter. So this is something that's much our expectation and hypothesis, and also the results are visible. Yes, we were also looking at what are the mechanisms behind possible cracks on ice. And what we have seen is that there is one thing that also have an impact, that is where you have a significant or your morphology of it quite like challenging or complicated. In this case, you have an island. So then the bathymetry will be, in that sense, a bit rushed under this island. And then the primary mechanism that we have seen is when you lower the water level. Then there will be pressure over the ice touching this bathymetry, and then the cracks will start forming. But also keep in mind that cracks doesn't mean that it will be totally open. It's just crack on the surface. And the last thing I would present is about the water level fluctuations. We have used an optimal price scheduling model that Tina Melie developed, and then there was a master student that used it to simulate the difference between traditional and pumping. And what we could see is in the upper reservoir, we see there are some changes, some more fluctuations, and in some cases, water level is higher than in the traditional. But in oil, if you see, it's even more significant. The purple is the traditional, and the green is the pumping. As you see, through the pumping, you will utilize more the upper part of the reservoir, but it will also fluctuate much. So this could be classified using, for example, a HINO classification. That is a report that includes many different indices. And that is also a bit linked with what Thomas mentioned, that it's important to also have a way of having criteria, environmental criteria, to classify what is the impact and also to define new constraints related with a new way of producing, because it's true that we are still using constraints that are very far back in time, and they were in the concessions, and there is not much that has been done since then. So we are good in track, I think, to start changing this, and also we need to comply with the legislation. So it's not just really a choice. We have to do it. So we also see that, yeah, when you have traditional and pumping, then pumping will be following the category that is a bit less severe if you operate on the traditional, because you will not lower your water levels so much. But also, if you implement ramping constraints in your reservoir, you will even improve more these water level fluctuations. But as I said, these are all simulations that we have done, because until today, we don't have a real case. But that's also good because we have opportunity for research. So I, I wrote that. So what can we expect then from modernizing Norwegian hydropower? And then, as I mentioned, we will have more water level fluctuation. But what does it really mean for the quality of the reservoir? Well, we still need more research because we have some indications. But since we have not seen it in reality, we need to start monitoring our reservoirs in order to be able to have a background to provide environmental restrictions and constraints with a scientific knowledge behind. Also, there will be thermal stratification and ice covered impacted, mostly near the structures. And beyond that, will mean for the entire lake the same. We still need more research. And as we have seen for the previous presenters, we know there is a very huge potential of increasing flexibility through pumping, but we need to have a good background to support environmental restrictions and minimize the potential impacts. But I wanted to end that even if we are saying, or I'm saying all the time, we need more research. I think we are good on time to start doing it. There is pressure from the politicians, and there is also interest from the own hydropower companies on having more research being done, collecting data, and through monitoring and then implementing mitigation measures, I think it's possible, but we have to take action. Thank you. Thank you, Anna, for this captivating presentation. You can keep the light on, and we would invite all speakers to join us on the stage. Yes, and while everyone is joining, Anna, do you want to give us a bit more details about how environmental constraints could or should be adapted to hike our level? Yeah, I think it's very important to start having like a good background and through monitoring, for example, also having more data collected in order to say, okay, what are the indicators we have been using until now? Maybe it was to set a restriction on the water level, but that was okay when you were having like this typical reservoir operation. But is that indicator good enough when we are going to have a flexibility and more ups and downs? Maybe we need a new indicator for that. And then we need to implement learning by doing. We know there are some fun sessions that has been set by MB that says, okay, this is the environmental restriction. After a few years, we can come back and change it. And I think that's very good because it kind of gives the possibility to the producers to implement it and then adapt it while you are seeing if it's working or not. So I think it's more research and also have the collaboration and the pressure these days from the politician and from the society is making a good point to it. And to have a bit more flexibility in the concession or like yes.
And just to kick off the joint discussion, I one of the inspirations for this session was this perspective piece that a couple of our speakers were involved in. And one of the conclusions of this was how can benefits be better distributed to municipalities and communities? And so I was just want to open it to all of you. Is there any thoughts on this? And any policy innovations that can help us, things like that, so we can separate you.
Thank you. So there are winners and losers, and as you saw from some of the newspaper articles on the slides here, the ones who get nothing or losers, they are not happy about the situation. And when it's these kinds of investments that are also very pro-otherwise on that. So the government is able to do something about this through taxation, and they are considering exactly how this should be distributed. So, for instance, local municipalities have the right to that owns have the land in which these developments are situated. They have the rights for something called possession power or license is in the laws. And even though these projects not generating energy, there will still be the basis for licensing power that benefits the local municipalities. So so there are the sessions and winners and losers, and in this picture, there this debate still going on. Yeah, so the NDE, the Norwegian Water Resources and Energy Directorate, they are one party in this. They are the government. Then there's the industry represented by Greg Borgia, representing the industry and trying to take their perspective. So one of the debates going on is to be that what should the taxation be? What should the rules have to be? The details about one of the things I learned about this recently was from customers interviews and below.
Yeah, there's been a long-term debate if these upgrades, especially with if it is beneficial for local municipalities or not. And very recently, this summer, ND, okay, yes, they posted or published a calculation example showing that actually the local municipalities, they gain quite massively from these type of projects. But that debate is being closed, and it seems that local municipalities, they will hopefully become one of the winners.
Anything to add, Thomas?
Yeah, well, I think so. It is probably important not to proceed, though. I think. I mean, well, the NVA can calculate that the municipality benefits, and now I don't know the specifics of those cases, but for folks on the ground, then it's really important to translate that into something tangible, right? It's this same discussion that we keep having about so-called AS Norge versus, the more specific things of people's lives, right? So, I mean, in the NDE, they are constantly in this game of proving the economic worth of something versus not doing it. So I think sort of making those benefits tangible, linking it to the lives of the folks on the ground there, linking it to those natural consequences that we've heard about, and also sort of the process to have folks involved in making those decisions. Is
Any concluding thoughts?
No, yeah, I think it's the same. It's very important that the municipality will get more benefit, but maybe it's important that the locals and the people see what is the benefit going to be for. Like, are they going to help protecting nature? Is going to be taken as a trade-off because of other benefits that can be done? And yeah, I think it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, nice answers. Thanks. Okay. Now we will open it up to the floor here. So we encourage you to participate in this discussion. So if you have a question, just raise your hand and Benjamin will bring you a mic. If please try to keep the questions short and to the point, and if possible, frame it for group discussion. But yeah, most importantly, please participate. And yeah, that's it. Okay. We got Graham. Excellent.
Hello. Thank you for your very nice talks. It was a great session. Then perhaps ask some questions. What do you think about some of the societal barriers where people kind of live in the past and they expect to have cheap electricity prices because we've had that before? Why can't we just do what we did before and give us cheap prices? And the overall kind of intuition of the people on the ground is that we shall build nothing, we shall build no capacity, we shall build no wind power, we shall build no transmission to any other countries. We just want it cheaper than before. How do we engage these people?
That's a good question. Any takers or spot?
I can start. So yeah, it's very much the perspective of many comments that you see in below the news articles. So that and it also came up in Thomas's slides. There's this societal deal between the government and its people that okay, we build these power plants, in return you get cheap energy. Now, after the liberalization of the energy market happened, about 1991, and this deal was sort of maybe in play already then, right? Because at that time the markets were the markets determined the prices, not the government. So this has been the case since then, and the market is, well, the prices are determined by supply and demand conditions. So now these conditions say, well, yeah, the price is high, fair price is high, so we have to pay more, right? And this is yeah, many people feel that this is breaking the deal with that we sort of cabled governments from 80 long time ago. And you asked how do we inform or convince or engage people in understanding that, well, prices may be high in future also, and we have to live with that. So I think these are textbook questions. I don't have the answers, unfortunately, but uh, I know that one important policy from the government is to start this so-called electricity support, which basically protects many of us from really high prices. So, well, certainly not a direct response from the government there. But nevertheless, the politicians are in trouble in this playing field here. So various politicians are underbidding each other, trying to give more support. And that's also they're trying to do artificial measures to reduce electricity prices for end users. The latest um, suggestion was to remove that added tax to network services, which will, of course, in principle, increase the electricity demand and worsen the underlying situation. So these things are not so easy to solve. This was my initial response. Maybe there are others.
It's anything to add? Thomas?
Yeah, no, no, I totally agree with your presentation and your comments that the society between the bond between society and these projects are being it's not as clear as it used to be. So that's where we should do measures to improve. And one potential solution is to, when we build new power plants, one greenfield idea is maybe that then some of the ownership should go to the local municipality, so it directly get a benefit. Because through taxing to the states, the money goes to the state and society, but you don't see the box that it comes back to your pockets. So more direct value sharing.
Thomas?
Yeah, thanks. Those are good suggestions here. Although I would really begin by problematizing that question in itself. I mean, it's and that way of framing the question is part of the problem and why there is a hostile response, I would say, just to sort of because I mean, research into this does not support that statement. So you cannot start by saying that because there are lots of comments on Facebook and because there's angry people writing letters to the editor, everyone are backwards and do not understand this, right? I mean, if you ask people about their stance to these types of texts, you will typically get quite diverse responses. And I think sort of part of this is actually that there is a lack of openness from the parts of the industry and from parts of sort of research about what all this is about, and which sort of hampers the understanding of the need for these things, right? So, and that was kind of what I was alluding to when I was saying that we need to actually stop discussing this plant, that wind farm, this nuclear, whatever, thing and discuss it in relation to all of those changes that we envision that this should sort of contribute in society. And today, I mean, one of this question is, why do we need all this energy? In Norway, it's to electrify oil and gas, is to produce green hydrogen, ammonia, data centers, and if you, and all of these things can be questioned, right? So these are sort of political issues, and it's for me, it's not clear cut where we are going. These are things that can be discussed and should be discussed, and out of that will come a much more nuanced public response, I think, than sort of for or against. So I would really warn against framing any discussion about sort of the stupidity of the public, because it will not get you the kind of positive response that you're after.
Nice. Thanks, Thomas. And then I want the other thing.
No, no. It was really good, and yeah, and I just have feel that the reaction in some of the blogs and posts from some colleagues, and there are some research projects that automatically people get a lot of like negative answers back, and it's true that this thing with a very negative perception, but probably the answer is what it has been given here. I doesn't have.
Well, great question. Sparked a nice discussion here. So yeah, next question.
That was we talked about everybody talked about a person, but I think apart from a person, the capacity is also a big issue. The capacity. This I'm hearing from the government a lot, and I was just studying with the floodlight reduction, and I heard that grid capacity is an issue. Uh, so Thomas, do you think this is not an issue? Because when I'm sitting with community members, saying that, well, if a new factory, if a new company comes and they're asking beyond a certain amount of megawatts, they're unable to provide that. So we need to do something. So do you think capacity is not an issue? Where will it come from?
Not sure why that question is directed to me, but but of course I think that's an issue. So that's my answer.
Need to build up this extra capacity. So we need to build up this extra capacity, and of course there are different ways to do it. And of course everybody's trying different ways to achieve solve this problem. Of course, there are some way with find this hydrogen very listen to stage. But of course, right now we need a lot of energy to produce it. Of course, it can be kind of questionable. But obviously, we're looking at the future. So to kind of invest in this technology right now, we cannot question that either, because now we are looking for the future. Today, it's questionable, but tomorrow, maybe that's the only solution, right? So if we did not prepare to invest on this expensive technology now, we may be too late in 20 years, right?
We may be too late, but I mean, okay, so let's take one example, hydrogen. I was yesterday, I was in several other people in this room too, was at a meeting with Equinor, and those people are telling me green hydrogen, we don't know how to do it. No one must do it. And I don't know, I'm a simple, humble social scientist, and this is in part sort of investor questions. This is in part political questions. It is, of course, also a technology question. But I think, well, then, I mean, there's a lot of talk about risk in the group, right? And investor risk. And a risk here is also that we're betting on the wrong technologies, right? So I'm not saying that we don't need energy. I'm saying that in relation to the question about the public, we need to have a more complex we need to sort of discuss that then. If we say that we as a nation should become a hydrogen producing nation, I'm not against or for that, but that is something that we shouldn't be group of engineers deciding that without sort of having a democratic dialogue around it, while at the same time energy poverty is rising and people are freezing in their homes. I mean, these things are happening at the same time.
Sorry, because I believe save the further discussion afterwards. So yeah, I'm questions. But any others want to weigh in on the question? Oh, okay. So another question from the audience. Right. Good. I have other questions and with
Yeah. Oh, okay. Let's finish the nose. There's not one today. Let's go.
Yeah, with the Zalda looking to reduce I don't know what it's English, but the time slot for the spot price buying from 1 hour to 15 minutes. How do you think that is going to impact the usage of things like hydropower and how you use it?
Yes, that's all.
Yeah, it's a good question. And this actually reduces the potential income from both the power and normal power plants and pump storage plants. One of the reasons is this graph I showed you about system services income. That's been incredibly rising a lot. It's been lucrative to produce those system services. And the reason why we need those system services is that the market is every hour today. And then you have to account for that the market is not perfect and you have imbalance in between each hour. So then the system services is basically balancing the market between each hour. And now when we go to 15-minute resolution, then the time window is shorter, but market is actually fixed itself much better. So the system services will be less needed. So this is reducing the income from some of our power plants. But at the same time, it's for the society, it's very beneficial, I think, for the same reason actually, that the spot market is more able to balance itself, that you don't need this extra and sometimes very expensive services. It will be interesting to see how it works.
Yeah, we're reducing the system costs. So, any other input on that question? No? We have another question overhead.
Yes, one question about Sierra Guina. There was the discussion, and it was said that also one report that the municipalities would benefit very much by increasing the capacity there, by extending possibilities. Is that already taking also into account the job market? So I expect that the municipalities that are around there, or I don't know if it's only one, I don't know the geolocation, unfortunately, but I first of all guess that there is not so much population, but I guess that most of the population is probably working with Sierra Guina. It would be interesting to hear some numbers there. Was that already included in that report, that benefit onto the job market, onto the jobs of the people? And then also how, are the people there seeing that, especially when they're involved in the company, they already have probably a lot of insight on it, and also to get over to the environmental part about the reservoirs. How are those people interacting with the nature there? And what differences could arise? Like we talked about fish. So is the fish going away that they normally fish there? Or you also said that all of that is pretty unknown. What actually will be? That's why we need to do research to see if those are severe changes or influences, or if it's just going its natural way. So yeah, would be nice. Actually, it's not a very specific question. I'm sorry, but nice to know a little bit around that.
Yes, the complicated question. Who wants to start?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And in Sierra we have the Tomta, the local municipality, and Seattle is about 1,800 persons living there. And our company employs 100. And 50 of those live inside Sliederdal, Stonstad, and the rest outside. So actually from the hydropower company, the rate of employment is very, very low. compared to the revenues that we create. So the jobs in the hydropower company is not necessarily so massive actually. It's maybe there are some in the construction phase, but that's temporary. But then there will be a lot of activity if we make new power plants. Second, our local municipality, Sirdal, is sometimes famous in Norway because they every now and then there comes a news article that Sirdal gives 3,000 kroner to each inhabitant in Sirdal because they are one of the richest municipalities in Norway. So they do that.
Also of the hybrid.
Or not all of it. They share it.
Yeah.
But
They probably do more.
yeah, they have the largest share. So they do things like this. If you want to settle in Seattle, they give you more or less free land and they pave your driveway. So they are very rich and they are very positive to our projects because they see all the benefits they get already. They will get more if we build. So they tell us when do you start to build. They are already positive. So that's kind of supports Roar that's it's a mixed crowd out there. Some are really positive, some are not so positive. Finally, on the environmental side, I wanted to we should reflect on our presentation because I think the story is representative of how I see the public opinions. That you start out with some projects have potentially huge negative aspects, negative consequences. And you see the beaver, and he is afraid of the water level fluctuation. And of course, with pumps, you could do really harm. But as your story went on, we have this potential harm. You see the kind of potential damage, and then immediately you start to fear it. And then in the end of your story, and I don't know if everybody really took that in, but you see it actually has a positive consequence in that example. It will not in all examples, but we also see that in a lot of our projects, this new added capacity, it gives positive environmental consequences. And that is the storyline ending there. It's a real surprise. And we need to get that message out.
Yes, I agree. And for example, as Caspar said, we need to see it more in detail because now was been released, but we expect to see this increase on the water level and then the utilization of the reservoir will be mostly on the upper part. It's true that the water level will vary a lot, but maybe it reduce the impact on the fish community. When we have been there during the field work and going in summer, there's a lot of people that have recreation activities in the area. They really enjoy being at the sea. That is beautiful area also in summer, not just in winter. So there will probably be people that is also a big concern about why the reservoir now is looking like this and like that. But for example, what we heard also uh, last time we were there, with the 2 years or 3 years ago, it was very dry. And then that's another thing to take in account. It was very dry and the water level was really low. And the people there were like, what's happening? What's happening with the reservoir? But it was actually because it was a dry year. Maybe Sierra Queen have reduced over a few years, expecting there would be more of improve coming, and it didn't. And maybe this is something that can also change if you have a pump, because then you will kind of don't go so low on the water levels in one of the reservoirs. So there are several maybe positive aspects that could be also out running.
And you, any concluding remark?
The first question was about the effect on employment. Maybe, yeah, so locally, we heard that this society is really well off, no big problems. And Norway in general is, doesn't have much unemployment at all, which means that if you have a project that needs a lot of manpower, it's not really a beneficial thing because you need to import that labor, probably, and have all kinds of issues with that. So, if you want to sell a big project, Be careful about selling the local employment effects on this because there's really no unemployment in Norway. In fact, on the long term, we are short of labor because we need to take care of our aging population. So, yeah, be a little bit careful about trying to use those arguments.
Thank you for this. So I think we will conclude for that. Thank you everyone for joining the discussion, and please give an extra round of applause for our speakers.